Here are 30 game-changing youth coaching strategies that are going to give you ultimate success with your young athletes. This is a compilation video of my best tips that come directly from a playlist I have. It's in the description below, called 30 Youth Coaching Lessons in 30 Days. You can go there and watch it now, or better yet, let's get right to it with this video. Oh, before I let you go though, really important, at the end I have a bonus video just for you for watching this, so stick around to the end and I'll see you there. There are 3 ways to make your coaching sessions fun for kids. First of all, make sure that your programming is right on the money in terms of being age appropriate and developmentally appropriate for the kids that you're serving or coaching on that day. Secondly, be on their level. Get down on their level. If you're dealing with 6 to 8-year-old kids, get down on their level, become a kid yourself, and that will help you with number 3. That is, bring the juice, bring the energy. They will mirror your energy, your enthusiasm, all of that. If you do those 3 things, you will have the best, the most fun sessions for you and the kids. Remember, the world needs you, and we'll see you soon. Coach, here are 3 steps to deal with challenging behavior in young athletes that will work every single time. Set, guide, and anchor. Set expectations before every single session. Base those expectations off of listening, respect, fun, and effort. Next, guide your session. Every time behavior comes up that you want to see based on those expectations, call out that young athlete with a high five or verbally. Maybe it's a quick little, hey, nice job raising your hand before you spoke. Whatever it is. At the end of every session, make sure that you anchor down the behavior that you want by handing out a reward like Champion of the Day, MVP of the Day, All-Star of the Day, to highlight the athlete that had the best behavior and character of the entire session. Lift them up, and remember, the world needs you. Hey coach, here are 3 foolproof routines you can use to mentally prepare to coach your young athletes. Number 1, review your programming. When it's fresh in your mind, your stress level will come down and allow you to freely execute your programming with your kids that much better. Next, think about them. Think about the fact that they need you. They need the best out of you. And use that to help yourself do the 3rd thing, which is ramp yourself up. Get pumped up. I know some coaches that do jumping jacks, they run sprints, they do push-ups. Whatever it is that works for you, do that. But you need to get into character. You need to bring the juice and the energy. So make sure you're mentally preparing. And remember, the world needs you. Here's the absolute best equipment you can use for speed and agility in young athletes for under $50. The first thing is the space you're already using, and you don't need as much open space as you might think. Number 2, saucer cones. I just found 50 saucer cones for under $50 on Walmart. That's pretty inexpensive, and you can use those 1,000 different ways. Last, use their bodies. We don't need all this high-tech equipment to help with speed and agility, especially with young athletes. Work on their coordination and work on their technique, and it'll get you so much further, and they will, in the end, have more fun. So coach them up. Remember, the world needs you. Hey, here's your cheat code for dealing with challenging youth sports parents. First of all, make sure you set expectations right out of the gates. Make sure they know what you expect out of them and their kids. Number 2, set boundaries and stick to those boundaries. We've all had those parents that coach from the sidelines, or even if you're in a facility coaching sports performance and you have a parent coaching from your lobby or somewhere else, set those boundaries and hold firmly to them. Last, make them part of the process. Easiest way to do this is at the end of the session wrap up, where when you're speaking with the kids about what went well, what needs to be improved on, what behavior you love, how well the group is doing as a whole and where you're heading. Make sure that they're at least within an earshot of what you're saying so that they know what's going on and they feel part of the process. Coach those kids up, coach the parents up, and remember, the world needs you. You're not going to believe this, but the best way to warm up for a training session is actually with a game. What I call a transition game. It's a way to get them out of their world and into yours, especially if it's during a school day. Two great examples of transition games are any variation of tag you can think of, and one of my all-time favorites, rock, paper, scissors to a target. So it's one-on-one, me versus you, rock, paper, scissors, shoot. If I win, we run to the right. If you win, we run to the left. So again, rock, paper, scissors, shoot. We race to a target. There's one winner and we play over and over and over again. Do that for 1 or 2 minutes. Get your kids mentally and physically prepared for the next step in your training session. Coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Hey coach, here are my 2 favorite ways to warm up young athletes for a game. The first is any variation of tag in a small closed off area. My second favorite activity to warm up young athletes for a game is what I call run into a space. In a small enclosed space, either blow a whistle or clap when you want them to accelerate into a space. The rest of the time they're moving extremely slow because remember, it's just a warm up. So they're jogging, side shuffling, karaoke, backpedaling. Blow the whistle, clap twice, into the space. They're looking for open space. Really great transition game to get them ready for the actual game. Coach them up. Remember, the world needs you. Hey coach, don't make this huge mistake when coaching young athletes. Where you actually stand to address your young athletes is super important. Make sure that you are facing the sun so they're not blinded by the sun when you actually want them to pay attention to you. Another thing to think about are distractions. Try to limit distractions for young athletes by positioning yourself where they see you and not everything else going on around them or in your facility. And last, think about what you can see. How many athletes can you see through your periphery and just by turning your head, by your positioning on the field or in your gym or whatever the activity is that you're leading. And really try your best not to turn your back on a bigger group to address one athlete. Again, positioning is key. Coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Do you want to learn how to have a better connection with your young athletes? I'm going to show you 3 ways to have the best connection with your young athletes. And by the end of this short video, you're going to see how all 3 of these tie together. The first thing you need to focus on is how you greet your young athletes. Don't just say hello, but actually see them as human beings. It will make a huge difference. Second, make sure that along the way, throughout your session, you're saying their name with something positive behind it. It could be something that they physically do well, or it could be because of great behavior. And last, and this is how it ties all together, make sure you say these words. I can't wait to see you again. You see them, you guide them, and then you can't wait to see them again. Coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Here are 3 telltale signs that you're overcoaching, and as a bonus at the end of this short video, I'm going to show you exactly how to avoid overcoaching. One of the first telltale signs of overcoaching is noticing that your young athletes are now confused. Then that leads to what? Hesitation. They hesitate taking a shot. They hesitate making a pass or going to the ball. That's because their confidence is also being affected by your overcoaching. The best way to avoid overcoaching is by coaching reflectively. What does that mean? Let them play. Let them go through the drill. Let them practice. Let them perform that lift, whatever it is. And then when you have a break in the action, then you can coach them up with one or maybe two really poignant cues to help them get to the next level. So coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Coach, how are you supposed to know if you have enough drills or activities set up in your next training session? Well, I'm going to give you 3 things to think about that will help with that. First of all, don't worry about it. It's quality, not quantity, that's most important. Get as much quality out of that activity or drill that you can, and then look to move on or progress. Number 2, it's really up to the athletes. You could be grooving one activity or drill for 20-30 minutes because it's really working, they're really having fun, and they're improving. You don't necessarily have to move on. Number 3, you can always progress. A progression is important, but again, it all comes back to how your athletes are doing that particular day, that particular hour and minute. So keep your eye on them, coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. What should you do if a drill is just failing? First of all, don't force it. Sometimes a drill might need to marinate just a little bit. Let your players work it out. Give it a little bit of time. Sometimes we can be too anxious for it to go well. The next thing you can try is just strip it down. So break it down into its individual parts if you think it's too complicated. Or, you know what you can do? Is just strip it down and make it easier in some way. The next thing I recommend is just move on and then reflect. Think about, did I explain it well? Was it too advanced for that group or that individual? Really reflect and think back, change it, and maybe go back to it the next time. Coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Have you ever had that perfect practice plan, and then all of a sudden you have an odd number of players? What to do? Just make sure you have a contingency plan. It's always okay to go groups of 3 and then rotate, even though it's not ideal. And you can always use the coach, ideally not you, to be that extra player. Make sure you rotate who that coach is with, because with younger players especially, they all want to be with the coach. Coach them up today, and remember, the world needs you. One of the biggest mistakes I see when it comes to speed and agility in practice sessions is putting them in at the tail end of those practice sessions. Do it in the beginning. Use speed and agility as a skill development exercise in the beginning of your practices or training sessions. And one of the best times to do that, because they're fresh, not only physically and mentally, is during the warm-ups. That's a tip you're not going to hear anywhere else. So go coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Hey coach, you know as well as I do that the way you set up your training sessions are vitally important in making sure that it hits all ability levels on your team or in the group that you're training. How do you do that? Well, you have to have the right mindset going into your programming. Make sure you're coaching to the lowest common denominator. In that, here's the second train of thought. Don't assume ability level, even if they're kids that you know. So make sure that it's stripped down to its lowest part. That way you can always have a progression and move up. It stinks for everybody when you have to have regressions or strip things down because your programming was just over their heads. So coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Hey coach, we're halfway there. I know you already have some tips that you're going to take back to your practices or training sessions right away. So do me a favor, give this video a like. Please share it with every coach you know. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you at the end of this video for that bonus. Enjoy the rest. Playing music in the background for your training sessions can be detrimental, but it can also be very, very beneficial. Just make sure that you're super intentional with it and you think about your culture. It has to fit in with the behavior that you want. What kind of culture and feeling and atmosphere are you trying to create? Whether it's a small speaker on the field or if it's in your sports performance facility and you have a sound system. Again, make sure that it's intentional and make sure that it fits into your culture. It's super, super important. Remember, everything you do with your young athletes teaches them something. So coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Hey coach, here's the absolute best way to quickly create a team environment, even if it's a brand new team, instantly. Have them get in partners for whatever activity or drill that you're asking them to do. It really doesn't matter. I also suggest using this as a warm-up right in the beginning of practice because it'll incite their brains as well. So they get in partners, whatever you're doing, make sure it's only about 20-30 seconds. Blow the whistle or clap twice, give them some kind of cue. Tell them to switch partners immediately. Every 20 to 30 seconds, blow that whistle or clap twice and have them switch partners. It forces them to play or practice with or go through that activity with a different teammate or member of that session or member of your gym every single time. So it eliminates cliques and it builds that team atmosphere. Coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Coaching a young athlete with low motivation can be very frustrating because, let's face it, they come off as lazy. What they need from you is either inspiration or direction. And it doesn't matter whether that athlete has low motivation but a higher level of skill, the one that's not reaching their potential, or the one that has low motivation and a lower amount of skill. Inspire that one more, give more direction to the young athlete that has a little bit of skill behind them but seems to lack the motivation. And always remember this as well, there's a reason for behavior. They're not lazy, they just need some inspiration and direction. So coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Challenging your most skilled athletes when they're in a group with other athletes of varying ability levels can certainly be challenging. So do these two things consistently to challenge those kids. First thing you can do to challenge your highly skilled athletes is delegate. Make them your assistant coaches. Have them demonstrate skills, have them help with equipment, give them leadership roles. That's a great way to challenge them. Second is make sure you give them ownership. They don't need as much direction. So if they make a mistake on the field or a mistake in your training session, ask them, hey, what would you do differently? What did you see that time? What did it feel like that time? Let them answer and give them as much ownership as you can. So that's how you can challenge your highly skilled athletes. And remember, the world needs you. Hey coach, make sure that you're setting realistic and flexible expectations for yourself when it comes to your training sessions. As a coach, you can't control all the intrinsic and extrinsic factors that come into play with dealing with young athletes. What you can control is what happens during your sessions. So make sure you're realistic about that and make sure that you're flexible enough to change on the fly in the middle of your sessions so that they get the best possible experience, and so do you. So coach them up and remember, the world needs you. Getting young athletes to listen during sessions is real easy if you do these three things. Set the expectation about listening, full body listening with attention. During the session, make sure you praise that behavior. So as soon as someone raises their hand before they speak, or if you can really see that they're focused in and listening, praise them in front of your other athletes. And 3, make sure you anchor that down at the end of your sessions with some type of reward, whether it's MVP, All-Star, Champion of the Session of the Day. Hey, so-and-so had the best listening today. That's why they're our MVP. Remember, no matter what you do in your sessions, you're teaching your young athletes something. So coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Here's how you can evaluate your young athletes in 3 easy steps that literally takes 30 seconds. Number 1 is cognitive. Do they understand what you're asking of them? Number 2, physically, can they perform the activity or the drill? And number 3 is behavioral. Are they willing to do it? That's it. There's your 3 really easy and quick ways to evaluate any young athlete in a matter of seconds. Make sure you use this, coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Contrary to what a lot of people believe, just because someone was a great athlete, or because they lived in the gym their entire life, or they're just super athletic, does not qualify them to coach or train kids. So where do you start? On the sports performance side of things, look no further than the IYCA, the International Youth Conditioning Association. I'll have a link in the description down below. Go check them out. Resources are incredible. If you're a youth sports coach, go to your local and then state organizations. So soccer, for instance, go to your town or rec soccer organization and see what they have to offer. At the state level, there is tons and tons and tons of free education. So go there next and get as much information as you can and educate yourself so that you can be the best possible coach for the kids that you're going to be in front of. Coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Here is exactly what you need to do if you're a brand new coach or trainer and you're just about to start with a young group of athletes. You must start with your culture, team building, togetherness, inclusivity, behavior that you'd want to see. How do you do that? You set expectations based on listening, respect, fun, effort. Then throughout the entire session, while you're bringing your energy and that culture of togetherness, you also praise the behavior that you want to see. At the end of every session, make sure you anchor everything down by highlighting great behavior, great effort, all the things that you wanted to see in your sessions, and be consistent. So set that culture, stay consistent, coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Hey coach, here are 4 strategies to determine when you should give your young athletes a water break. Number 1, you could use a timer so you know how long your drill is going to go for and then when they're going to rest. Number 2, careful observation. That way you get a pulse for where your team or where your athletes are, and then you can give them that water break when they need it. Number 3, you can ask them. If the majority of your athletes raise their hand, that's your answer to know that they need a break. And number 4, you can merely use a water break as a reset. Even if you don't think they actually need the break physically, use it as a reset so you can go back to that drill and have even more success. So go coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Hey coach, here's the easiest way to set up your practice plans or your training session programming. Make sure you use a templating system. That's right, bullet points on all the areas that you want to hit in your practice session or training session. Then you can go back and just fill in the blanks. What's great about that is you can build in progression where you want your young athletes to go, but you can also reflect and think about how they did in the last practice session or the last training session and build off of that. It's the perfect way to not go in blind when you're trying to set up your sessions. You'll have more fun doing it, and they'll be more effective for those kids. Go coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Hey coach, here's one of the easiest ways to instill confidence in your young athletes. Our young athletes are going to make mistakes, and that's where they can learn from them if we guide them in that process. So instead of there being any good or bad, just explain to them it is what it is. But let's define that. Let's break it down. If a soccer player takes a shot and it goes 10 yards over the ball, why? Was your plant foot behind the ball? Did you get underneath it? Were your shoulders back? If the lift breaks down in the gym, why? Why didn't they get that lift? Why didn't it feel right? Break it down. It's just information, and then you can teach them how to do it better the next time around. Give them a high five and let them move on. Go coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Believe it or not, the highest priority you can have as a youth coach or trainer is taking care of yourself. And this is why. First of all, you need to lead by example. Not so you can boast about your workouts or how much sleep you get or how well you eat or what kind of shape you're in, but to lead by example, to live what you're asking your young athletes to actually live themselves. It's so important. Number 2, you need to have the energy required to train these young athletes. Whether it's a 6-year-old or an 18-year-old, you need to be at your very, very best. They deserve the best of you, and you know what? So do you. So take care of yourself so you can take care of them. Coach them up, and remember, the world needs you. Intensity in training sessions is so important and so beneficial for so many reasons. The easiest way to bring intensity to your sessions, especially with your younger athletes, is be there with them, not for them. What do I mean by that? Engage, participate. If you notice that the intensity is lower, get in there and do the drill with them. Show them the intensity that you want, and they will begin to mirror you. Also, it's great for you to show them you might even make mistakes, and you can make those mistakes with confidence and move on. What a great example you'll set for them. So be there with them, not necessarily for them. Participate, bring the intensity, and remember, the world needs you. Is the number one responsibility really performance for a youth coach or youth trainer? Is it development? Is it wins and losses? Is it goals? What exactly is it? It's fun. It's to provide an unbelievable experience so that they have so much fun they want to come back for more. Because all the other things we want, performance, wins, development, all these things don't happen unless they continue to participate. It's better for their long-term development. And again, when they come back for more, we have more opportunity to help them become the athletes we're hoping them to be. So coach them up, have fun, and remember, the world needs you. So my bonus tip for you is this. Don't even try to implement all these tips and strategies all at the same time. It's actually impossible. So what I have for you is a deep dive into the most important thing you can do in terms of setting up those expectations. That was a common theme throughout all of these videos. So click on this video now so you can deep dive in and become the coach that they deserve. We'll see you soon, and remember, the world needs you.